view. Whether one is Theravadan, one is Mahayanas, it matters not. From the very beginning, the Buddha taught in this way. Just this mind. Don't forget this moment. Don't let the mind go running here and there and outside of this room. That's just habitual patterns. This is an illusion happening in mind. Without mind, there can be no illusion. There is nothing to enlighten to, because you already have it. Just this mind that you're using right now is the Buddha mind. Nobody has to give it to you, confirm it to you. Nobody can take it away from you. Whether you do horrible things, your Buddha nature still remains. In this world of samsara, this world is filled with ups and downs and karma. And we get twisted and turned in different ways. But this mind does not twist and turn. Its nature is one to rest. So we rest the mind in the present moment. The Tibetans say to rest in rigpa. The term rigpa means the clarity of the mind. This clarity can see through all illusions, all appearances, all projections, as these all are naturally appearing in mind in accordance with causes and conditions. Mind is not subject to the laws of karma. Mind is the laws of karma. Pratika samapada, causes and conditions never fail. The great master Ling Chi, he said we had to be mindful of karma. Be careful not to let it turn us this way and that way in the winds of disturbances in the mind, so that we don't know what we're doing. And yet in the same treatise, he said, I have been looking for this thing called karma for 12 years, and I have not found it, not even the size of a mustard seed. Have I found anything that you can call karma? These two statements are not contradictions. One is stated to those caught up in the twirlings of this samsaric world, this world of illusion. And the other is made from mind itself. Mind is the karma, is how it works. If we search for this outside of ourselves, we can never find it. Just this mind that you use right now, this very mind is the Buddha mind. There's no need to look for it elsewhere. This mind, so wonderful, is the Buddha mind. You have to begin to see things from this right view. Understand this right view so that The mind is not caught up in a world of illusion. If you listen with this mind, open your heart, listen for the sake of passing these precious jewels to others, you'll be not far from it. Master Ling Chi said, people these days, they cut off their head when they sit to meditate and then proceed to look for their head. You only have to realize, apart from this very mind that you're using right now, there is no Buddha mind to aspire to, no Buddha mind to get. Every time you meditate, you use the Buddha mind. You quickly lose it in the mind of illusion and follow the mind of illusion instead of the Buddha mind. Moment to moment, if you choose the Buddha mind and choose it in the next moment and the next moment, you will not be lost. Grasping for, rejecting are not the proper choices of the mind. Simply returning the mind to its original source, its original nature. In everything you do, you will demonstrate the Buddha mind. We do not build from the 5 precepts, the 3 jewels, the 4 noble truths, the 6 paramitas, the 8-fold path, the 37 factors of enlightenment, a stairway leading to the Buddha. Just this mind is the Buddha. Where would the stairway lead to? Where is there not the Buddha at any given moment? This is right view. So you already have this. If you do not forget this, you will have a lifetime of practice. It does not matter what you call yourself, Theravada or Mahayana. These are just words. But the mind is beyond words. It's beyond phrases. It's so incredibly precious. How precious is this mind and this talking? In Diamond Sutra, Subhuti, which was a disciple of the Buddha, was asked by the Buddha, suppose Subhuti, if one was to have all the grains of sand in the Ganges River, and all of these grains of sand in turn would be Ganges rivers, the collective grains of sand of all of these Ganges rivers, one represented a treasure chest to give to the poor. Would the merit of this gift be great? And Subhuti said, yes, world-honored one, most correctly, it would be so incredibly great, the merit. And the Buddha said to him, not as much as one person telling another person 4 lines of this sutra, the merit is greater. Because these verses, they cut through illusion. They look directly into mind, demonstrate moment to moment mind. The topic for this presentation is mind and illusion. when you begin to understand that illusion appears in mind naturally in accordance with causes and conditions, then we have an opportunity to understand how the mind works, what we should do with this life. This is an incredible gift that one can give to others, is to tell you what you should be doing with this body. This body itself is just what the ancients called a red meatball. Doesn't sound very romantic, does it? So one could sit here and look out onto this audience and see a bunch of red meatballs. I don't know if they'd be Swedish or Italian meatballs or Singaporean meatballs. But in right view, what do you think that I see when I look out over this audience? I see nothing but Buddhas. Just Buddhas listening. It's incredible. Incredible to see so many Buddhas here. Of course you're here, because you use the very same mind. It is how we live. And I'm getting a little bit ahead of, I think, the last lecture I'm going to give. But how we see others. If you see others and you're angry at them, could you be angry at the Buddha? Would you be yelling at the Buddha? Gossiping about the Buddha? Do you know what the Buddha did yesterday? Cursing them? It's a different way of seeing things from right view. And it started very early. Even in the Nikayas, they talk about this. Okay, so we can start now, as this is the introduction, and if you understood everything I said, you can walk out now. There'll be a Buddha test at the door, though. This young man went to Master Sheng Yen, and he said, Shifu, I want to tell you, I'm enlightened now. And Master Sheng, and you never, there's a story saying, if you ever meet a man of the way, don't ask him about the way. And so he's saying, I'm enlightened, self-proclaimed enlightenment. And so Shifu said, really? And Shifu, my master, never said he was enlightened, nor would you ever hear me say I'm enlightened. What would be enlightened to do? But so the Master Sheng Yen told him, really, how do you feel? Do you feel heavy? Do you feel light? Do you see light? Do you see darkness? Do you do this and do that? And the boy is having to think, what would an enlightened person say to these questions? And so finally he said, Shifu, you keep asking me these questions as if you don't think I'm enlightened. And Master Sheng Yen said, well, an enlightened person wouldn't act like you. And so the boy just like that, because he didn't want to be challenged. Once in actually my first retreat with Master Sheng Yen, he called me in for a special interview and he asked me the same questions. And I just went, Shifu, you're asking me these questions as if you're testing me to see if I had some kind of an enlightening experience. I have no interest in that. And he goes, good. go back to practice. It is this type of an attitude we have. We don't try to reach for something. Already in this first retreat, I understood this, there was no reaching, no attaining. When I talk about awakening. Awakening is different than trying to talk about enlightenment. So if you're coming here to become enlightened, I'm sad to disappoint you. If you come here to listen about awakening, you're in the right place. Okay. It is just in this way that where you're at. Awakening is awakening what is already within you. You already have it, which is Buddha nature. The thing about it is that for some reason you have fallen into slumber and you don't realize this nobleness that you have, that you are already the Buddha mind. It cannot be otherwise. Everything in Buddha doctrine is determined about this kind of an understanding, this right view. And when we understand it and awaken to that, it changes how we see things. We no longer are subject to the illusions around us. It does not mean that the illusions disappear. Once I caught my master going up and down the stairs at this Chan meditation center, and it was before a retreat. And I said, Shifu, I understand now how this works, that it's like as if one is riding a bike and you're riding the bike and then you stick a stick into the spokes of the wheel. And as soon as you do that, the bike immediately stops. And he was listening to me. It was very interesting because Master Sheng Yen didn't speak English, except I don't ever know what language we were speaking together. But he understood me, and he thought about it and he said, yes, that's the way it is. And then he kept walking and I walked the other way and he said, but Gilbert, so I had to turn around to see him. And he said, it only stops for you. This was important. This was really important to me because it's why I'm here. I'm here to help you go, here's the stick. Stick it in the spokes, let it stop. It's valuable. It's precious. It's liberation. And you have the ability to do it because you possess the Buddha nature. It is what we do. It is what we practice. So we practice within samsara, but we are well oriented as to what we should be doing in this world. When you see this in the right way, the sutras become alive. The Nikayas become alive. One is reading and seeing it as it's happening and understanding the purpose of these precious Dharma that's being presented. And it's not for you. It isn't in this way. What it is for everyone. Why? Because you all possess Buddha nature. Once I was giving a lecture in Ohio University in the United States, and I was saying that everything is an illusion. And there was this one co-ed, a college student there, and she said that if everything is a dream, then why does it matter? Like to say to me, why are you even talking about this if it's just a dream? It doesn't matter. So I looked at her and smiled and said, "You were a college student here." She goes, "Yes." And I said, "And you live on the campus in the dormitories?" "Yes." "And you have a um, uh, what would you call it? A roommate?" "Yes." "And suppose after you come back from this lecture, you found your roommate asleep, and she was in the midst of a terrible dream. She's swatting away and she's groaning. What would you do?" "So what would you do?" "Wake her up?" "Wake her up, right?" "Would you wake her up or just look at her and go, oh, look, she's really in an awful dream?" None of you would do that. You would wake her up. So she said, "Of course I would wake her up." And I said, "Why?" "Why what?" "Why wake her up? It doesn't matter, does it? Because it's just a dream." You see the difference? It's awakening. When we awaken from this dream of samsara. Sometimes the dream is a good dream. You won the lotto. Sometimes it's a bad dream. They're getting a traffic ticket. Or worse. But if one awakens, even in their dreams, they're awakened. They are aware of what they're dreaming. It's very interesting. But it is the reason why I'm here, because it does matter. Even if there is an illusory sentient being that's having a bad dream, it matters. Why? If you were, let's say, you cut your hand and you see a big cut there, what would you do? Everybody's not going to look at me now because I'm going to pick up. What would you do if you cut your hand? You would help it, right? With your other hand, right? You would be cleaning it up, putting a Band-Aid in there. What if this hand here says, oh, that looks pretty bad, but it has nothing to do with me, because that's on the other side of the body, and so good luck. No. This hand, these eyes would find the way to take care of it, to put a bandage, clean it up, take care of it. We, the body, why would we not care about others? Even if it's an illusory cut on an illusory person, it still belongs to the Buddha. It still belongs to the Dharmakaya. It's not separate from the Dharmakaya. The Dharmakaya being the mind ground. So when we see things, by virtue of our compassion, we want to take care of it, but it's a compassion for our own body, right? We take care of it. You don't see people walking around and going, oh, they're bleeding, like they're just bleeding and bleeding. Say, do you realize you're bleeding? Yeah, but it doesn't have nothing to do with the rest of my body. That would be foolish. It would want to take care of it. You are all the Buddha body. The one thing that you have in common is that you have a Buddha body. This is so important. When you understand that, then you understand how to talk to people. When you talk to people, you see them also as part of the Buddha body. We cannot understand that because we only see ourselves as individuals. And when we only see ourselves as individuals, it doesn't work that way. But that's the way we can turn our head away from somebody who's suffering, somebody who needs help. You know, I'd like to help you, but I've got to go home, or whatever else it is, instead of of doing this. A good portion of my practice of my life is helping others, of spending the time necessary to do that. A few nights ago, I spent over 2 hours talking to a monastic with suicidal tendencies. How could I say, oh, that doesn't belong to me? Of course, it doesn't have to be a monastic, it could be anyone, but my time is their time. Their suffering is my suffering. I feel your suffering. I feel your joy. How could you not? This is how we're connected. Truly, we're talking about mind and illusion. I want to shift your focus, your perspective to right view so that you see things differently. When you read the sutras or the treatises of the great masters, they will come to life because now you understand you're not there sitting on the cushion trying to get something. You're awakening, right? This very moment, you're awakening, just like they talk about in the Western Pure Land of Amitabha, and they say that the people, when they come, some of the people, they're like a lotus flower that's closed, you know, and others, because of their practice, they're a little bit open, but as they begin to practice, it opens up. You are all in this way. Some of you who practice many years, you're almost fully open. Others, you're just a little bud of a lotus flower, but nevertheless, you are still have Buddha nature. My job is to take care of that. I cannot say to a person who really needs some assistance, you're not real. Or somebody who has just lost a loved one. It's okay, it's impermanent. Everybody's going to die. This is not taking care of the novice. We connect with them. We say the things that they need to hear, but sowing also the seeds for future practice. So if somebody bleeds, we bleed with them. Let me advance you to a different sutra. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of the sutra. Has anybody read or even heard of the 𝐵𝑢𝑑𝑑𝑐𝑡 Sutra? Raise your hand. Oh. Have chance? Okay. This is a very powerful sutra. It comes not from the Mahayana class of sutras, but the sutras of the Tathagata-garbha. In the Tathagata-garbha sutras, it goes directly to Buddha nature. And this sutra was a very important sutra. I wish I had like 3 months to talk to you about the sutra itself because it's that deep. And it represents that there's a layperson that is more awakened than any of the Buddhist disciples, even to Manjusri and to Sariputra. And the sutra, in part, was this layperson that says, I wonder how the Buddha's disciples are getting along and the Buddha. So he, through his power, then he plays like he's ill. And he's there going, oh, and the Buddha's listening to this, you know, but he's not doing anything. So he goes, oh, until the Buddha goes, okay, I've got to do this, find out what's going on with 𝐵𝑢𝑑𝑑𝑐𝑡. And so he begins to ask all of his disciples to go to look into Vilamakruti. It's hard for me to say the story without giving you all the other details, because every bit of it is so precious. But he asked Sariputra to go. And Sariputra goes, no, I'm very reluctant to go. And the Buddha says, why? Why are you so reluctant to go? And he said, because one day I was sitting under a tree meditating, and Vilamakruti came along. You have to picture this in your mind. So Sariputra is there, venerable old Sariputra, meditating, and Vilamakruti comes along, and he says, what are you doing, old venerable? And he says, I'm sitting in repose. And Vilamakruti says to him, this is not sitting in repose, essentially telling him, all you're doing is you're just crossing your legs. This is not sitting in repose. When the mind is aware of everything around it, it's sitting in repose. When it has compassion to others, it's sitting in repose. When it speaks the Dharma truthfully, it's sitting in repose. So essentially what he was saying was what the Tibetans later on took as resting in Rigpa, resting in the clear mind. We're constantly resting in the clear mind. This is something very precious that my master, Master Sheng Yen, taught, which was that we have to always be resting in mind. So as I'm talking to you right now, I'm resting. I'm resting from talking to the leaders here before coming here and preparing for the class earlier today, and sleeping and preparing for the class last night. I'm resting all the time. Whatever I do, I'm resting. This is repose. It's not just sitting and crossing your legs. If that's the case, your cars could become enlightened by resting in the parking lot. Does anybody have an enlightened car? The cars are getting smarter these days. The people are getting dumber. But in any case, this is just one of the disciples that he talked to, and he talked to so many of them. Finally, he got to Wenchupusa Manjusri, and so Manjusri said the same thing. I'm very reluctant to go because he's always schooling everybody. Nobody wants to talk to him because they're schooling. Sometimes I feel the same way, when I'm talking to people, this is not sitting in repose. And the people go, oh, no, don't talk to him because he's going to say something. I don't even know what Gilbert's talking about. Yeah, and so, but it was important, and a little bit of background on this particular sutra was very important, because here is a layperson that is the prominent figure in the sutra that is schooling the disciples, and it's showing that everyone has this ability, everybody possesses this true nature. So one doesn't necessarily have to be a monastic to practice right view and realize mind. We all are capable of doing this. So it's a very important aspect of the practice, and there's more to it, but I'll hold back for another time about that. But in any case, then Manjusri said, okay, I'll go see him. And so when he went there, Vilamakruti realized that they were all coming to his house. So what did he do? He cleared it out. He instructed the servants all to move the everything out of the room, except for one kind of like a chaise lounge that he was just lying on there going, oh, and everything else was just like a white room. Just imagine Everything's gone except for this lounge chair and 𝐵𝑢𝑑𝑑𝑐𝑡. Not even his servants were present. And so at about this time, throughout the entire universe, people heard that 𝐵𝑢𝑑𝑑𝑐𝑡 and Manjushri were going to have a talk. And so wouldn't you want to be there? Wouldn't you want to hear this incredible dialogue that's there? And so all over, there were so many devas, gods and bodhisattvas, practitioners of all sorts of different classes. They all started following Manjushri to 𝐵𝑢𝑑𝑑𝑐𝑡's house in Visalia. And by then, you know, I'll put a number on it, but it's much greater than that. Let's say there were 50,000 people in a room like this. How are you going to fit them in? How are you going to fit them into this room? We don't understand mind. If you understood mind, you would know how they would fit, which will bring me to an exercise, a very good exercise for you. In terms of this, how would you fit all of these people in this room? Anybody know? Want to guess? It's okay. How would you do it? How would you fit all these people, let's say 50,000 people in this room? Would they all be like this, and somebody's in the back squishing them in? Nobody know? Some way it is Zoom. You know, you could say it in this way, that it is in this way. But I have another exercise for you, okay? Imagine right now in your mind, close your eyes, and you have like a bowl, a wooden bowl. See it in your mind, this wooden bowl. And inside the bowl, there is a walnut. You see the walnut. See the bowl and see the walnut in the bowl. See it very clearly in your mind. Now change the walnut to a big brown bear, almost the same shape as the walnut, but now it's a bear inside of the wooden bowl. You see the brown bear resting in repose. It's just there. Big brown bear, just doing nothing. Now change the bear into a large mountain fitting inside the bowl. See it inside the bowl. You see the mountain and the bowl that's holding it. Okay. How many of you were able to see this? Raise your hand. Okay, no crocodile hands. You have to put them up high. Okay, thank you. Most of you. Some people don't see it because there's a thing called aphasia that they cannot see it. So if you didn't see it, it's okay. You're normal, sort of. But you have aphasia that you're unable to do that. I just recently found that out. So before I go, how could you not see it? But you saw it, right? Where did you see it? In mind. In mind. But you pointing to your head like this, is your head big enough to hold the bear, much less the mountain? In mind. How did 𝐵𝑢𝑑𝑑𝑐𝑡 do it? It happened in mind. It happened in mind. This is important because I'm training you how to use your mind. I'm training you to see the things. When you see things in this way, of course, 𝐵𝑢𝑑𝑑𝑐𝑡, through the power of mind, was able to make the room big enough to hold all of the people. Because the people are illusions in mind. Mind is mind. It can do whatever it wants. We don't understand this. We don't understand this power. Master Han Shan said, we have to use our intrinsic power, our innate power, to develop power. You all have the power. You don't understand this, but you have this power. Incredible, incredible power to do this, but you've never realized it. So this power that's there was able to put all of the people into the room. And the sutra says he was able to fit everybody in there without any impingement into the town of Visalia. It wasn't like all of a sudden you built a stadium for 50,000 people and you had to move everybody out of the area. If the people walked into the room, there's room for 50,000 people. You walk out of the room and it looks like a regular house. This is mind. This is mind. There's a reason why this is being presented, because it's telling you to unlock the power of mind. There's 84,000 obstructions to the practice and 84,000 doors to the practice. When we start talking about these incalculable numbers, it's on purpose. Anytime you read a sutra that talks about these things, or in the Nikayas when they talk about countless rebirths, it is all appearing in mind. It's why it works. But if we try to count it with our fingers, we can't do that. No matter how much we try to do, we can't do it. But mind can do it. We are a product of mind. Mind can infinitely express things, phenomena within it, because it's infinite in itself. There's no borders to the mind. It is this very mind that you're using to listen to me now. So this was the power of 𝐵𝑢𝑑𝑑𝑐𝑡, that he had this ability to put everybody in without them being squished. So they're all in the room. And so Manjushri, we get back to the original story, comes in with all the entourage of all the people, and everybody's waiting to hear what's happening. And after the first part, 𝐵𝑢𝑑𝑑𝑐𝑡 says, "Oh, you've arrived." And he says, "Yes, I've come." And he says, "Well, actually, you're coming without ever coming, or going without ever going." And he started to school Manjushri. So Manjushri went, "Okay, enough with that." He really says, "Enough with that, because you're going to be here keeping us for 2 kalpas talking about the Dharma." And so he says, "Enough of that. How are you doing?" So he said to 𝐵𝑢𝑑𝑑𝑐𝑡, and standing before his recliner lounge there, and he's saying, "How are you doing? How long have you been ill? What is the nature of your illness? And what is the cure of your illness?" What do you think he would have said? What was his illness? So 𝐵𝑢𝑑𝑑𝑐𝑡 says to him, "I am ill because all sentient beings are ill. All sentient beings suffer, therefore I suffer. I have been ill since sentient beings began to suffer and will not be well until they're all released from the suffering. This goes right to the Four Noble Truths. And it is in this way that brings me here. Because they're suffering, I have a concern about the suffering. I want not only to help you, but anyone who will listen to this lecture, anyone who will learn from you about how to remove the suffering, anyone who will perpetuate right view, to see the things in this way. So he's ill. Why? Because his body represents the body of the Buddha. Your body represents the body of the Buddha. Now, your body itself is not the true body of the Buddha. It's an appearance. And it's very interesting in terms of this. How many of you know the Trikaya? Ever heard of Trikaya? Nobody. Okay. I wish I could come here every week. Honestly, I wish I could. I'm not insulting you. I just wish that I could do that. Because in some ways it's good because you learn a lot. And not all that I present to you will you understand, but it's okay. Don't worry about that. So the Trikaya is that we have the Dharmakaya. Some of you may have heard Dharmakaya. So the Dharmakaya is this world here, and everything that's phenomenal appearing is the Dharmakaya. It is the body of the Buddha. All the phenomena is here. Now, to get there to understand this, I have to bring you back to something that's very important. To know all the Buddhas of the past, the present, and the future, to know them all, perceive that all Dharma Dhatu, nature, all phenomena is created by the mind. To know all the Buddhas of the past, present, and future, you have to understand that everything that you see is created by the mind. Apart from this, there is no creation. Apart from this, there is nothing that's there. You have to see it in this way. It's very, very important. There's a fine-tuning in that where we have on one part a practice of removing the dust particles and the practice of seeing it elsewhere. Once Master Sheng Yen at a retreat was giving a lecture, and he said, just imagine that you had a plate, and in the plate you saw a bunch of dust. You just have to go and blow the dust off, and it will be clear. And so he was looking at everybody, and everybody's going, yeah, yeah. And he said, how did you like my example? And I like raised my hand crocodile style, you know. And he looks at me, you know, with a kind of like a eye, like I just passed gas. And he's looking at me and going, Gilbert? And I said, Shifu, I was just wondering, where did the dust go? And so he looked, where did the dust go? Where did the dust go? You just ruined my example right now. He's so stupid. And so the people going, yeah, he's so stupid. I can't believe he said that to Shifu, you know. But later then in the evening, he called me in for an interview to talk about where the dust went. because he was not incorrect and I was not incorrect. He was posing this in a way of, from the sixth patriarch time period of Shen Shu, and Shen Shu was saying that we have to always be dusty, not let the dust alight on the mind. But the other way of looking at it is that originally there's no mirror there, no mirror stand bright. Where could there any dust be to a light? In other words, saying, even the dust is part of the mind. You cannot send the dust outside of mind. It all belongs to mind. This is very, very important, very subtle change. What he was talking to the group was from a little bit lower level, but what I was explaining or questioning was, where could the dust go? The dust also is created by the mind. It is Buddha nature as well, in terms of belonging to the Dharma body. It's illusory, but nevertheless, it cannot be outside of mind. There's nothing outside of mind in this way. So when we understand things in this way, then we know that this is the Dharmakaya. Everything is created by the mind. Anything that's the Dharmakaya has been created by the mind. Mind itself, if we try to look for mind, we cannot see it. It is inconceivable. But we can see the traces of it. We can see the traces of mind, just as you see things, you understand this moved here, this moved there. Why did it move? Because mind attached to this or mind attached to that. And this clarity of the mind explains why things happen, why people are saying or doing or thinking what they're doing, and what they have done in the past and what they'll do in the future. When the mind is very clear, it is well oriented as to what is appearing. If you're not well oriented, then you create suffering, because you're clinging to things as if you're holding on to a handful of sand and hoping to hold on to it, but you can't. That joy will not last. It's not that way. So this is the Dharmakaya. The Sambhogakaya is what's called a reward body. The reward body is the body of the Buddha that's in a blissful state. It doesn't need to do anything. It's in repose. It's just blissful. If you look at the Buddha statues, you see, they have a very sublime smile. And if you look at from the Mahayana side, Kuan Yin, Bodhisattva, or Wen Shu, Manjusri, and Avalokitesvara, they all have a very sublime smile to them. Just a suggestion. Why? Because they don't need anything. This is the Sambhogakaya. The Nirmanakaya is the appearance body. The historical Buddha from 2,500 years ago is an appearance body. It doesn't appear to us I should say it in this way. It appears to us in a manner in which we could understand. So if all of a sudden this light would appear and begin to communicate with us, we could not understand that. We would probably be afraid of it and move away from it. What's the matter? There's a big light there just talking. They couldn't understand that. So the appearance body comes in the form of whatever sentient beings that need to have something, but it's a little bit different. It's known by what they call the 32 marks. Has anybody ever heard of the 32 marks of the Buddha? Raise your hand. Okay, so that's good. So now you know what I'm talking about. These 32 marks is very, very important, because these are special marks. They could have something like a wand symbol, like the the swastika. It could be the pearlescent skin, the tight knotted hair that you see on the Buddha statues, webbed hands, different things that are the 32 marks that are there. This is an appearance body. But something very interesting, which is because you too are appearance bodies. You're Buddhas as well. This body that you have is not your true body. It's not separate from the Buddha because it is created in the Buddha mind, but it's not your true nature. Your true nature is not other than the Buddha mind itself, which is inconceivable. It is why in the Diamond Sutra, how many of you have read the Diamond Sutra? Raise your hand. Come on, it's still early. You don't, it's like you have to put it up. All right, some of you have read the Diamond Sutra. It's very interesting. It's a sutra that's true name is called Vajrachedika Prajnaparamita Sutra. The sutra that cuts through illusion is its English name. The diamond that cuts through all illusion. And what does it say about the 32 marks of the Buddha? It says the Buddha cannot be known by its 32 marks, because that is an appearance body. It's not the true body of the Buddha. You are all part of the true body wherever you look. Is that my master used to say, you're swimming in it all the time. You're just swimming in Buddha mind. It is just in this way that you see things. And when you understand it, and he would be laughing and laughing, knowing the people didn't understand what he was saying. You're swimming all the time, just swimming. Of course you're swimming, because this is not other than the Buddha mind. We don't understand that. So we just fall back asleep. Oh, that was very good what Gilbert said, but, then you fall back asleep. You should not be in this way. You should understand that this body that you have is still precious because it enables you to listen to the Dharma, to spread the Dharma. So there's a function to this body. It's not that you're just a lump of a meatball. There's a purpose there because it's all connected to the Buddha mind. Again, my topic is the Buddha and the illusion. And so we're beginning to see they are not two things. They're not two things. And taking you through all of this, I'll get back to Vilamakruti in a moment, but all of this is to explain to you this Trikaya, which is important to understand the Dharmakaya, which is created by the mind. The mind itself cannot be known in this way. If we see this board here, and this board is like the mind in repose, and things can be projected upon it, but its true nature, what would you say? How would you describe the mind? The mind is there, but it's also not separate from what is projected upon it, which is an illusion. You are all projections. So you go home and they ask you, what did you learn from Gilbert? I'm the Buddha. You're really the Buddha? Well, no, I'm just a projection. I'm an illusion. And when my youngest son, Ananda, many, many years ago, he'd come to my Dharma lectures, and once his kindergarten teacher called me up and said, your son is scaring the people, the students. And I said, what? Yes, he's scaring them. What is he saying to them? He said, he just points his finger at them and says, you're an illusion. You're not real. You're a dream, And they were going, no, the kids were going, no, I exist. I really exist. He goes, no, you don't. And so it was very funny. Luckily he was going to this Montessori school, and the leader was or the principal was a Buddhist. But it was a shock, to the little kids, because they really believed my son. They liked him, but when he was telling them this, they had a very difficult time, to do that. When my master heard of what my son had done, Ananda, he said, then you have to look at what it was your original face before you were born. So he gave him this puzzle to work on. So it's very interesting, but sometimes it can be a shock. Once I did this, and there was a practitioner in a San Francisco chapter in California, and he had been practicing for many years, including Mahayana practice. And when I told him he was not real, he went, and he was so shocked because somebody was telling him that he's an illusion. And he's going, no, I'm not an illusion. I'm not an illusion. Yes, you're an illusion. Just like my son was telling him, I was telling him, and he was very disturbed. He could not understand this. In the sutras, they talk about this, and they talk about that if one does not have fear or confusion when they listen to this, then they can make great progress. But if you have fear or confusion, then it will not work. It will not work in the way that we see things. So this is very, very much the way it is. I'm known for teaching very deep and profound. And so I don't come here to sing campfire songs with you and I come here to really go to the heart of the teaching. And sometimes it can present confusion or fear. And once I was reading a sutra, was called the demonstration of the inconceivable state of Buddhahood. I don't think any of you have read that, right? If you read it, raise your hand. See, it's a good one. It's deep, very, very deep. And so this sutra, there's Subhuti there, and Subhuti is known as a disciple that accompanies the Buddha in the Wisdom Sutras. And he's listening to the Buddha and Manjushri having a discussion. And the Buddha asks Manjushri, have you attained the state of Bodhisattva? And so he says, you have already taught us before that such states are unattainable, but if you have attained the state of a Buddha, then so too have I attained the state of a Bodhisattva. Very deep. I mean, he was known for his wisdom, so he's throwing it back on the Buddha and saying, did you attain the state of being a Buddha? And so the Buddha says, haven't I said already that the state of being a Buddha is unattainable? And so then Subhuti's looking like this, because they went on for a couple of pages at least, going back and forth with all of this. So I just give you an example of it. And finally, Subhuti goes to Manjushri and says, Manjushri, speaking so high level and so lofty and so profound, is it that you are not taking care of the novice? In talking at this deep level, are you forgetting about the novice? They're just trying to figure out what the Four Noble Truths are. And you're talking at this level like this. And the Buddha said, excuse me, Manjushri said, Subhuti, suppose a person is ill, and I like speaking to Asian audiences because you have a better understanding of this. And and if a doctor is to prescribe medicine for your illness, would he prescribe sweet nectar and candies and breads to you? Or would he give you the bitter, astringent medicine? So if any of you have had Asian medicines, how many have tasted medicines like this? Raise your hand. And the rest of you are asleep. So the thing is, of course, does it taste good? Heck no. It's very, very bad. But it makes you feel good. What kind of a doctor would be there to say, oh, I have a tummy ache. Oh, here, have a Kit Kat bar, westernizing it, the chocolate. No, what kind of a doctor are you? And so Subhuti said, of course, if you're sick, you have to be prescribed the bitter, astringent medicine. Otherwise, how are you going to get better? And so Manjushri said, voila, that's it. How are you going to get better if I just talk to you about nice stuff? No, I talk to you about this. Oh, don't worry, you'll be good, but the true master prescribes the bitter medicine. He doesn't prescribe to you something sweet that you feel good, and then you went to home and you say, what did Gilbert talk? Oh, he was so wonderful. I understood everything that he said. And it was so clear. And he was talking about the Four Noble Truths or whatever. And I'm not coming here to parrot what you already know. You come here to listen what you don't know. This is the cure. When we practice in this way and we open our hearts, then we can progress in the practice. But it's when we look at it, and if you're afraid that you don't exist, it isn't really in this way. There's still a way out. Now, in the course of this opening, you cannot believe how many schools I've talked about and how many different methods that you've heard already. All of these sutras and passages, and I haven't even gotten to the opening yet of what I wrote now. Someday I'll get to it. But it's here written down, but we haven't got there yet. And so in any case, it is this medicine that we need to take. And if you take it, it doesn't matter who you are, what you practice, it still will help. It will take away the illness. If 𝐵𝑢𝑑𝑑𝑐𝑡 can give this prescription to everyone, then he would not be lying ill on a bed. He would be liberated because everyone else would be liberated as well. It is in this way that we practice. When I read this sutra, I had questions because I was beginning to doubt what I was doing because others were so critical of the level in which I was teaching the Dharma. They never criticized my Dharma. I've never been criticized for the Dharma of what I'm presenting because I have backup. Everything that I talk about is in the sutras. And doctrinally, it works. But they said, oh, you're going to frighten them, you're going to do. And just in that moment, this sutra appeared. And then I knew I was on the right track. I knew that there are people that will listen and will understand. And this is what is very, very important, is that you all come with an open mind to listen, an open heart to listen. This is kind of a preface to what I'm doing, but it's actually a pretty good preface that you already have picked up a lot of Dharma. After reading that, I knew there's plenty of people that teach what I call ABCs. And but what I teach is beyond the ABCs. You're not going to get it all at once. It's not possible. I didn't get it all at once. But at least you know where it goes to. You know that what are the ground rules of practicing. You know that just this mind is the Buddha. If anything that I tell you that can be stressed, you understand that you have the Buddha mind. Moment to moment, it's yours to lose. When you have the Buddha mind and see everybody as the Buddha, then this is precious. When you start thinking about yourself, Gilbert's going and saying, I don't like this person, they fell asleep, or they're doing this, or they're not giving me a sour look, then of course I'm not going to be in line with the Buddha mind. But if one practices with the idea of reaching all of you, I truly want to reach every single one of you in some way or another, then one is in line with the Buddha Dharma, and in line with what's the most important is sharing the Buddha Dharma with others, and to have them see where the path is. The path is just simply maintaining the Buddha mind in body, speech, and mind. We're going to take a break and let you get off the cushion. I inundated you with a lot of Dharma already, but I don't want you to get worn out or anything. So we'll take this little by little. So I gave you a couple of visualization techniques that will help you to understand this. Now, you know, when you get up and stuff, just maintain your Buddha mind. Doesn't mean that you can't see people, you know. It's like sometimes I would go to a retreat and there were practitioners from, let's say, a Zen, Japanese, you know, and they're there and they have their backs to the people and their face to the wall, and just, I don't want to see anything. I'm not going to see nothing. This is not the practice. You walk around naturally. You see everything naturally. You understand everything is in accordance with Pratika Samappada, neither sacred nor profane. You don't hide from it. You don't put your head like an ostrich into the ground and say, I don't want to see anything. I don't want to see that. You know, I don't want to think about that. One naturally abides in this mind. And we'll talk about abiding a little bit later, and it'll change your whole idea of abiding. So we'll take a break for a while. Monks is the mind, and it is defiled by incoming defilements. Luminous, monks, is the mind, and it is free from incoming defilements. Luminous, monks, is the mind, and it is defiled by incoming defilements. The uninstructed, run-of-the-mill person doesn't discern that as it is actually is present, which is why I tell you, for them, the uninstructed run-of-the-mill person, there's no development of the mind. So the person that has not heard the Dharma, they cannot develop the mind because they don't understand that. So they only understand samsara and getting born and dying, but anything beyond that, they do not understand. So to them, they cannot see the luminosity of the mind. luminous monks is the mind, and it is freed from incoming defilements. The well-instructed disciple of the noble ones discerns that it is actually present, which is why I tell you, for the well-instructed disciple of the noble ones, there is development of the mind. This is very important because when we understand this, then we understand that there is a practice, an investigation, a cultivation of the mind. We have to always be probing into it. I have a forum online that's called Mind Work. And I name that specifically so people are clear that when we practice, what we're practicing is mind work. How does mind work? For instance, if one was decided they wanted to be a computer repair technician, they want to go into that business, what would be the first thing that they need to do? Anybody? Nobody's. I'm sorry? Learn how the computer works, right? Because you can't go there and say, the people go, and you have a blue screen and go, what's wrong? I don't know, it just makes this buzz sound. Can you fix it? No, I never knew how how a computer works. How can you sit on the cushion if you don't know what you're doing? Really think about that. We sit there and we cross our legs and we think there's some kind of a magical incantation that the Buddha's going to say, I think you've sat enough, you're enlightened, and you need a few more kalpas and whatever. By the way, kalpas is a very long period of time. It is described like the time of a kalpa is that every 100 years a bird would go by a mountain and brush it with its wing. And the time it takes for that to finally reduce the mountain just to a rubble would be a kalpa. So it's a long, incalculable period of time. So the thing is that you can take that time or you can investigate mind, and the difference is tremendous. Since you guys have a board, I was studying how to do it. Let me see if I can learn how to do it here. Wait, what happened to it? You've got low tech now. I know how to use that one. Oh my gosh. All causes and conditions, I'm going to end up with a black hand from wiping things off. I was going to show you in Technicolor, but in any case, so maybe we can bring that back for the afternoon session. So this is like a mountain, okay? And you're sitting here meditating. See, this is not an illuminated drawing. Oh, thank you. You're sitting here meditating, and you want to move this away. In one of the sutras, it talked about this bodhisattva that became awakened, and when he became awakened, his first comment was, it took me 5 kalpas to become awakened. So remember how long that is, right? Took 5 kalpas. And he said, had I known what I know now, I never would have spent 5 kalpas doing it. Okay. And it's because he's sitting there and practicing, and it's as if he's traveling around this mountain. When he gets to the back of the mountain, he realizes the mountain's still there, but it's taken him 5 kalpas to travel that far until he realizes he doesn't need to do that. All he needs to do is know that this belongs to mind. When he understands it belongs to mind, this mountain shatters. It breaks down. It doesn't have to worry about the bird flying by. It shatters. And he goes directly through. This is called 𝐶𝑢𝑏𝑑𝑑𝑐𝑡, okay? 𝐶𝑢𝑏𝑑𝑑𝑐𝑡 is the instant awakening. The instant awakening happens when one realizes that this mountain is created by the mind. So it's able to do that. It doesn't have to go all the way around till it finally says, you know what, that's created by the mind. I didn't really need to do that. And it goes directly there. When you understand that everything is created by the mind, you have to remember this because this will break this mountain right away, okay? This is something that in the Chan school, they talk about this as from the 𝐴𝐸𝐸𝐸, the sixth patriarch, and realizing that it's just this way so that one doesn't have to try to keep polishing the mirror to let the dust not alight. Nothing wrong with that, but this is the direct way. So you can break through quicker in this way. It is a matter of directing the mind. This is very important. So this term of directing the mind is very, very important in the practice. Directing the mind means that you're in control of the mind because you're using the Buddha mind. So you direct it where it needs to go. You direct it. And as I'm using it here, then it is in control of body, speech, and mind. What is there in the consciousness is just mind. The consciousness, your consciousness is not mind. It isn't in this way. But there's a saying that says that sages, wise people, return consciousness to mind. Fools turn mind into consciousness. So when you're thinking, clicking, that's consciousness. And you think it's your mind. But mind is immutable. It never changes. It never changes. Consciousness is constantly changing. It's impermanent. And it is the cause of suffering because things don't remain the same. So I'll explain to you that if your consciousness, we'll do the test, right? If your consciousness was truly mine, you would go to the ice cream store. And they go, what flavor do you want? Vanilla looks good. Okay, vanilla. No, wait a minute. Wait. I changed my mind. I see the pistachio and the rocky road and the strawberry out there. Sorry. What do you mean sorry? No, you only get one chance at it. It never changes. So if your consciousness never changes, the first choice you get is vanilla for eternity. It doesn't matter if you go to the store, the ice cream store, every time you go there, they'll already hand you a vanilla ice cream because your mind cannot change. But that's consciousness. That's different. That's not your true mind. In your true mind, you can order up whatever you want. But if consciousness was truly mine, you only get one shot at it. So make a good shot. Okay. And so anyway, this is important that you have to understand how mind works. Consciousness is arising in mind. It's not separate from mind, but it is not all consciousness is projections. So as we see things, we get confused. And this is mine. So what is mine? It's inconceivable. We cannot say what this is, but we know we used it to use the analogy of the wooden bowl and the nut and the bear and the mountain. We used it for that purpose. And so when we said, oh, let's look at the wooden bowl, and we had the nut in there that turned into a bear, that turned into a mountain, it is because mind enables those appearances. They're appearances. You guys are appearing here. This is not your real home, right? Although I've seen some of you from the last time, but I think you went home in between. So it isn't in this way. So the appearances, you have to understand, are projections. This is a projection. It's not real. If it was real, you would always be looking at the mountain. But it's transitory, constantly changing. But that which it's projected on does not change. Does not change. It nevertheless is part of mind, but it's a different part of mind. Now, I'm going to take you really deep. And don't worry, we'll come back to it. Give you an introduction to the Madhyamaka school. How many of you have heard about the Madhyamaka school? Raise your hand. 3, 4. How many of you studied it? Okay. At least you heard. All right. Madhyamaka is very, very important. If you're going to study Chan, you have to understand that if you're going to study Chan, you have to know the Abhidharma, Madhyamaka, and Yogacara. Chan Buddhism is not a separate teaching. It blends all of these teachings in, including Pure Land. How many of you know about Pure Land School? Raise your hand. Okay, you'll get in, don't worry. Okay, so the Pure Land School is also part of this. This is important when we understand historically what was happening with Buddhism in China, and as it was coming through, which is where primarily you're getting most of this training from, that these schools were there. The Abhidharma school, oh, I missed an H here, which means the highest level of it. It's part of the Tripitaka. You guys should know what's the Tripitaka. Anybody? You're just nodding your heads like the bobblehead dolls. But the Tripitaka, you should know, this is Theravadan, right? Is that you have the Vinaya, the Nikayas, the teachings, and Abhidharma. Abhidharma meaning the highest level. Mahayana also represents highest level in the Mahayana school. And Mahayana, originally the name Mahayana didn't designate a school.
It was just saying the highest vehicle, yana means vehicle, is the Buddha vehicle. So Maha, the highest vehicle, then represented the Buddha vehicle, which is what I'm presenting to you now, which is right view, that everything is created by the mind. This is the highest vehicle in terms of this, but it is not contradictory to Theravada. It just further explanation of what's there. And the Yogacara school. What's the name of the Yogacara school in Chinese? Esther. The Yogacara school in Chinese. Oh, she didn't have a mic. You have to say it very loud. Wei Shi, or Shen Wei Shu Lin. So Yogacara school is very important as well. All of these schools predated all of this in terms of the studies. And they're all ways of describing how mind works. The Abhidharma school is very incredible. It's a schematic, like we were talking about how it's a computer work. The Abhidharma school presents a schematic of like a chart of how everything fits together. It's incredible. So my master told me, Gilbert, you have to study the Abhidharma. And I'm going, okay, what's the Abhidharma? And so, several years later, I understand it. Same thing with the Madhyamaka school, which is called the middle way. So this is the middle way. The Yogacara school is also a way of looking at the mind in terms of how it is. All of these schools poured into Chan. And so Chan isn't this discrete school that just says cross your legs, and go, and you're going to get it. It isn't in that way. Only in California and Hollywood. If you go to Hollywood, you'll find plenty of people that will do that. We call it La La Land. So if you're there, then you can practice like that. If not, then don't practice that way. So we have to understand these schools, historically, what's coming in. And these schools affected both Theravada and Mahayana schools. And so when we see this, we're going to concentrate on this one for a moment. There was a philosopher by the name, Nagarjuna. Has anybody heard of Nagarjuna? Okay. So this is important because all of this is going back to the Indic studies from India and this middle way. And it's important for us to understand this, at least to have a little peek of this. So have you studied Nagarjuna at all? Okay. What's important is this, and this is why I want to give you just a taste of it, is that when we see the things as projections, do we say, does this mountain, is it real or not real? Is it real or not real? If it's real, then it would always be there. But if it's not real, it would not be part of mind, because it could not appear separate from mind, because mind is infinite. Where would you find a place where you'd sweep all this stuff under the carpet? It isn't in this way. But we have to understand, then, what is it? What is it there? If it's created by the mind, would it not be real because it's a creation of the mind? But it's not, come back tomorrow and it's gone. Then we say, is it real or not real? So Nagarjuna presented what's called the the two truths. So the two truths are if you get this and understand it, you can teach in the universities, okay? Apparent reality and absolute reality. So apparent reality, this is all apparent reality here. It appears. It's very simple to understand what apparent reality. It's appearing. I am appearing here. I'm appearing because you were interested in this. Voila, I appear. Causes and conditions never fail. So you come here and here I am, and I'm not teaching you how to make tea or to make steam buns, or dumplings. I think you guys really like dumplings a lot, right? I'm not good at making dumplings. I'm good at eating dumplings. But the thing is that you're coming here to learn the Dharma, so here it is. And so this apparent reality comes because of causes and conditions, never fail. And so when we see this in terms of apparent, it means that you're appearing. Your mind is appearing. All of this, we understand this. And so the mind here is oriented towards what's happening. It knows exactly what your function is here and what you're doing. What is your function? Huh? Today, right now, what is your function? Huh? To learn. That's it. So simple, right? You pass. Okay. So your mind is here to learn to listen. And so it's there in this apparent reality. So we say it neither exists nor non-exists. This is from, again, very deep into the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra. One of the earliest the Prajnaparamita Sutras was called the Astasasrika Sutra, or the Sutra of 8,000 lines. And in this it says it neither exists nor non-exists. This is the middle way of the Madhyamika, that's why they call it the middle way. Because it's neither denying apparent reality or accepting it as real, because if it was real, it would stay here. But it's appearing now. It's like going to the movie show and you go, you want to go to the movie? No, they've been playing the same movie for 10 years. But no, they now appearing something else, right? So then it's this way. We know it's going to be changing. But the absolute, this does not change. Your mind does not change. So when we look at these two realities, we don't say, because it's absolute, this does not exist. We still understand that this is an illusion in mind. It's appearing in consciousness. There's nothing wrong with the consciousness, but we have to understand that the consciousness has to return to mind. Returning to mind is the Buddha mind. So we constantly reminding ourselves of this, that there's appearances. And so when we don't, and we cling to the apparent, what appears is ego. Does any of you like your egos? But sometimes we're just in love with our ego. How am I going to dress today? So you go and stand in front of the mirror. No, that's not good. Take it off. No, do it this way. Put my hair up, put my hair down. That's not a choice for me. But to some of you, it is. But it's ego. We see the ego as an illusion. We see the ego appearing in mind. It's not real. It's an illusion. Nevertheless, it does appear. It's created by mind. So we can't just take it off the board and say it's off the board. No, because mind is infinite. This is a symbol for infinite. And so even in this way, whatever's on this board is infinite. All of these things are appearing on the board, but this board itself is infinite. If I really wanted to do it, you guys can't see it, but I could put it right here. Do you see it? It's infinite, but you can't see it because it's inconceivable, but it's right here. I can keep writing because it's just this way. This is this place where this is at is infinite. It's in all directions, what they call the 10 directions. There's no center to it, no center of mind. It is just mind. When we understand this, then we understand, okay, things are appearing. If I plant a melon seed, what kind of fruit will I get? Melon, right? You're not going to get a squash because you planted it. Causes and conditions never fail. It's perfect. It's so simple, truly so simple how mind works. So when we understand that, if I'm nice to you, if I help you, if I'm concerned about you, you will want to learn more. You will want to get closer. That's natural. If I come here and speak in a very arrogant way, or you may not be interested. Once I went to a place in the University of California, Riverside, and there were different people presenting the Dharma, and there was this one master that got up there, and the audience was a very, very big audience, and he spent all his time like writing and talking to the board. You can all read that, right? And he didn't turn around to talk to the people. The people were like nodding off. So I was the next one that was there, and I'm speaking to an audience that's half asleep. So what did I do? I got out from behind the desk, and I went right into the audience and started talking to them, and I engaged the audience and asking them questions, and they woke up, and they really liked that presentation because it was heart to heart. And so you orient in terms of what you're doing, and I kind of revived that conference, in that moment, and the people liked that because I was engaging with them. So you understand what your function is, what you're going to do, and you see things. Not to say anything bad about that master, but he really didn't have an idea of how to present the Dharma to people. And if you listen to an hour of, let's say, a doctrinal presentation, that's like 50 minutes too much. This is why you have to be engaging. I have to reach out to you and to say it in ways that, even though I'm speaking in an incredibly deep, profound way, it nevertheless can make sense to you. So this middle way is important because we don't have to say, this doesn't matter. Of course it matters. Even if you wake a person up from a dream, it matters. It may not be a dream all the time, but when you understand it in this way, then you see things as it is. And this is important, that we see that this apparent reality is constantly changing, but the absolute has never been born, never been created, but it enables everything. But it is the inconceivable. We cannot conceive of it. And one of the most powerful things that that I read, and this was from the Shasrika Sutra of 8,000 lines, was that Subhuti, I think it was Sariputra at that point, but Sariputra asked Wenchupusa Manjusri, you know, how do you practice the inconceivable? How do you practice the inconceivable? What's inconceivable? It's inconceivable. It's what? Well, how can you practice inconceivable? I don't even know what it is, you know. When we were young, I don't know if you guys ever did this on this side of the world, but you would always take the younger kids out on what they call a snipe hunt. A snipe, we're going to go hunt snipes. Well, there's no thing as a snipe, but they don't know that. So you're hunting for the snipe, looking for the snipe. But they don't know that it's that way. It's inconceivable. So how could you do that? So when they asked, when Sariputra asked Manjusri this question, how do you practice the inconceivable? How could you do that? I am the inconceivable. Mind. Just mind. It was the most powerful thing I had ever read, absolutely ever read before. I was just like, wow. You know, and then when I shared that with some of my senior students, they were blown away too. I mean, it's just so incredibly powerful. I am the inconceivable, not Gilbert, the mind. This is the absolute. And so when one approaches it from mind, teaching mind to mind, then it's different. It's different. We're not on a snipe hunt, an imaginary person. We're going directly to mind and redirecting the mind in the way that it should be practiced, in this way. I am, and then later it asked him, how do you practice the unobstructed, the unobstructed practice that isn't bothered by illusion? And again, he said, I am the unobstructed. Just this way. This is powerful. It's powerful. It brings you to the inconceivable without trying to define it in apparent reality. Apparent reality cannot hold it. Cannot hold it at all. But when you practice in the right way, it's just in this moment. This very mind that you're using right now is the inconceivable mind. Master Ling Chi, he said at this point of his instruction to his students, now that you have it, use it well. But when you don't need to use it, don't use it. It's so clear. It's like if you have a shoelace that's undone, you tie the shoelace. Afterwards, you don't look at it and go, oh, it's tied now. You don't need to do that. You just keep doing whatever you have to do. So it's in this way that we practice. When we begin to practice in this way, then the practice is one that's very incredible. Now, I talked a little longer than I wanted to, but I'm going to open it up for some questions before we have lunch. And there'll be more time for questions later. So anybody have questions? No one. You all understand this. You better, because there's going to be a test at the end of the day. Question? Yeah, here comes the microphone for you.
Hello, Master Gilbert. Thank you for coming to Singapore to teach us. I have two questions. I'll just ask one by one. The first one is regarding you were saying that there's nothing else outside the mind. So recently I was on a flight back from Shanghai to Singapore, and there was a lot of turbulence. And I just closed my eyes and I told myself, there's no turbulence, but there's no way there's no turbulence because the whole chair was shaking, my body was shaking. So how do I practice, and what concrete steps should I take to move forward from the apparent appearance to the absolute one?
The mind is fundamentally still, so there's no movement. You do not have to move the mind. It's like, I come over here. Did my mind move? Because I moved from here to there? Or if I'm over here, did my mind move? Did it change at all? No, the mind is there. This apparent body, appearance body moves. It moves all the time. But that is not the stillness of the mind. The mind is fundamentally still. So if one is traveling on a plane, did your mind come with you?
I would think so.
You see, the mind is if they say if the environment expands 1,000 miles, the mind expands 1,000 miles. If it contracts to 100 miles, the mind contracts to 100 miles. It is just this way naturally that the mind is always there. It's always present. When, for instance, something very important, when one is transferring merit, we don't limit the mind in terms of how far the merit transfers. The merit, and I'll talk about this perhaps later, is not limited to any space or time. So even though I'm sitting in my room transferring merit late at night, I'm transferring, directing it to a particular person or somebody who's passed away or is passing away, but then I can direct it to the class of people that are passing away, the people that have a same kind of illness or whatever it is. I'm not limited even in that way. I'm not limited in the present moment. The present moment of the Buddha present moment is not the present moment of an illusory being. The present moment is all moments, all directions, all time. So I'm constantly transferring merit to the past, or what we perceive to be the past, and transferring merit to the future. Those beings that will be there in the future that will die or have suffering or whatever. It's not limited at all to any location, but it is because the mind is still that it enables it to reach all time and all space. If you practice in this way, then you will not be confused. You have to open your heart to the infinite. Okay? This is a little bit more than you can understand right now, but I do that because I want you to try to practice it. Okay?
Thank
It's a
you.
good question.
Can I ask my second question?
Okay. $5. That's Singaporean, so that's...
Thank you. So Master Gilbert, you were saying about that we are all part of this Buddha body. So if I cannot be happy if someone else is not happy, I should be feeling others suffering. If someone is suffering, I'm also suffering. So I'm just wondering, this Buddha body, is this the shared universal thing? And how is it related to the alaya, eight consciousness? So is our eight consciousness alaya individual or shared?
So she's referring to the alaya vijnana, the eighth consciousness. So I don't know how many of you understand this. Actually, that's from the Yogacara school. And so the alaya vijnana, vijnana meaning consciousness, alaya means storehouse, consciousness. when we do that, we understand what the alaya is, which is just simply mind, and it represents the mind in its way. And so again, it is in the stillness of it that one understands the alaya, and being the storehouse consciousness, you can also call it the Dharmakaya, where everything is stored there, or the Tathagata Garbha, which is the thusness of of the embryo of all being and everything. Not that it's coming into creation, but it's already represents that which has come into creation and that which will come in creation in the future. It has everything. Same thing as the alaya. Those things then are not seen as moving. They are just seen in this way. And in order for me to explain it more, I'd have to draw the diagram and show you what the function is of seventh consciousness and sixth consciousness versus the five sense consciousness, and how those, when they're seen as fundamentally empty, collapse, leaving only the eighth consciousness. And so in the mind, it doesn't mean that this whole place disappears. It may in one moment disappear for a person transitioning out of clinging to this reality, but it reboots. But the practitioner will know that it's not real. It takes time. Because you're asking me a question to say, what is the Yogacara school? So that takes years. But anyway, that might help you. Just try to absorb that. Any other questions? Oh, one over here, and then another one. So we'll try to do this, but if we run out of time, I guarantee you'll have more time later.
Yeah, sorry, Master Gilbert. So when you refer to the mind, when you talk about the mind, are you referring to the brain, the heart, or the consciousness, or neither of the three?
Ah, what you talked about is consciousness. It's not mind. What you talk about is apparent reality, not mind. You cannot hold mind between your ears unless you have a very, very big head. And I don't think your head's that big. It's not infinite. You cannot hold it in this way. This is why we talk about that, and I'm not insulting you with this, but sages return consciousness to mind, and fools turn mind into consciousness. They don't understand the difference that when something is arising, it's apparent reality. It's not, it's a projection in mind. But the mind itself is inconceivable and infinite. Probably one of the most important experiences one could have in a realization is the infiniteness of mind. Because if you try to describe or define what does infinite mean, what would you say? Think about it. What would you say? What is infinite? It goes on forever, right? What goes on forever? No, there's no borders to it. Well, then what's outside? There's no borders. So it is the same as what we talk about of thus come one, thus gone one. I don't know if you ever heard those terms, with Tathagata and Tathagata, thus come one or thus gone one means the same thing, is that there's simply a thusness there. So this thusness is inconceivable. Your question is asking me to define the inconceivable, which cannot be done. All we can say is that it's just the thusness. The closest we come to it is in defining appearances in the samsaric world is pratika samappada, which is very important. Causes and conditions never fail. Understanding pratika samappada from the heart is mind. It is present, always present, but we cannot define it with words and phrases, but it nevertheless is present. Again, this requires one to screw their head on in the right way. So before we thought it was like the Master Baizong, when he became enlightened, he said it was not until this moment that I realized my nostrils pointed downward. It's actually incredibly profound and deep what he said, because it can be understood on many different levels. But this pointing downwards of the nostrils is saying it was right there, right before my very nose. But I realized, hey, it's in this way. And it was so clear, we cannot see it because we only see illusion. Without seeing illusion, then when we understand from where this illusion comes from, it comes from mind. Mind doesn't interfere. That's why they say it's neither sacred nor profane. Pratika Samapada is just simply causes and conditions. All these things appear in mind in accordance with cause and conditions, but they're not real themselves. So your consciousness does not belong to you. It is not in this way. So I will talk a little bit more about that as I talk about the Diamond Sutra, and we'll revisit Diamond Sutra for many things as well. There was one last question. If it's a quick one, I'll take it.
Earlier on in your talk, you mentioned Trakaya. May I know how is it spelled this word?
Okay, maybe you take your mask off, because I don't know.
Oh, sorry. Earlier on in your talk, you mentioned the word Trakaya. I was wondering how is it spelled? Okay, I got it. Trikaye. Yeah, thank you for the illuminating talk. So, is there any book or resource that you could recommend to us so that we can, read more into it? Any book you mentioned earlier on? There's one book that was very good.
Okay, it was hard for me to understand what you were saying. I apologize. Part of it's the accent, part of it's the bad sound system, part of it's my ears. If somebody closer can explain what you said.
I think she wants to find out if there's a book explaining Trikaya, the Dhammakaya, Sambodhikaya, and all the three kayas, and Zen, I guess. To understand better. There's so many books, so I'm not sure. She wants to know one book which you can recommend.
I can't remember one right now. I understand what she's saying. She'd have to Google it and see it. A lot of what I have read from is from commentaries on sutras that they appear to be there, and it can go very deep because even Master Ling Chi is explaining that the Dharmakaya and the Manakaya and the Sambhokaya are present at all time, which it is, but it's something that requires to be contemplated when we see these things that are present in the present moment. So it's very deep, but it would require her to just use her heart to find it. Her heart is already open to it. Now you Google it, you will find it. The Christians, they say, ask and it will be granted to you, seek and you shall find. And the same thing with Buddha Dharma is very interesting. When you have the heart to look for it, you will find it. Trust me, you will find it. There'll be no problem because your heart is already open to understanding this. It's very, very profound, very deep. And I just scratched the surface of it, but just to give you something. But it's good because this went to you. Maybe in the past practice, you understood this. So now you can revisit it again. Okay? So good. Okay, is the lunch ready?
Yes.
It's ready, so I don't want to delay the people to eat. So you ate the Dharma, now you can fill your bellies. Okay,